Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone survived the snow?
Ho, ho, ho.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Santa Claus is here.
Santa Claus is there.
Good morning, Dave. I haven't seen your face in a while.
No, it can't get in. It's locked up. How you guys?
Good. Everybody survived the storm, apparently.
Unfortunately, I guess we got to dig out a car so the burrow can get through. You know, the burrow's pretty tough.
Yeah, especially those one-way streets.
Yep. I don't know how much we got. Looks pretty close to a foot, I guess.
Yeah, I think we got about a foot here because it's over my garden boxes and they're a foot off the ground.
A pre-designated measurement run, huh? Over the garden means a heavy snow. Over the garden box.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody doing well?
Very
Seems to
good
be.
day.
I talked to Jim around 6:30 this morning, and they've been out pretty much nonstop since I think like 3 o'clock yesterday.
Oh, they've been nonstop. I thought maybe they'd take a little bit of a break.
Jim took a break, I think, around 10 o'clock last night, but the rest of the guys, and then he went back in at 4. The rest of the guys, I think, kept going.
Wow.
Yeah, and they haven't touched any of the walkways or like any of the borough properties yet.
Oh, I'm sure not.
It's gonna be a long day.
I'm afraid.
Well, Mr. Brunner was nice, and as I was using the snow blower on the driveway, next thing he came down and with his snow blower and did the sidewalk. So
That was nice of him.
yeah.
You give him a Bloody Mary?
I told him I'll make sure he gets paid back for that. Who knows? Maybe today.
Gonna build him a snowman or something.
That's it.
Has anyone been out? Is it heavy?
It wasn't
Oh, go Bill, sorry.
last night. I haven't been out yet this morning to clean up everything, but
We got more during sleepy time, I think. I went to bed last night. It was pretty well stopped. It was sleeting, I think.
let's see, what time do I have here? Okay, I do have 8 o'clock, and is Woody's not on the call?
I don't see him, Bill.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting, the Economic Development Committee, to order. And Melissa, roll call, please.
Okay. John Woodward will be absent today. Dave Boucher,
I'm here.
Fred Levering,
Here.
Bill Jenks,
Here.
Keith Durr, and Greg Portner.
Okay, I don't think we have any things that need to be acted upon, but we do not have a majority from my count. So, but we will move along to, do we have any public comments as they relate to economic development? Any public comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the Crown Plaza redevelopment. And Michelle, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. I see that, excuse me, Eric Schock is on the call. Eric and I have had a brief discussion about a proposal for redevelopment of the Crown Plaza site, which is the PowerPoint presentation up on the screen, and that has been shared with the committee in advance of the meeting. Eric, you are welcome to speak to the committee about the intended proposal.
Sure. Thanks for your time. I know you didn't have a scheduled meeting, so I guess thanks for dragging yourself away from shoveling snow this morning. So I had spoken to Michelle because I have a client that is looking to work with the owner of the Crown Plaza for a redevelopment of that property to include affordable housing for senior veterans. And I have on the line, on the line are folks from Meyer Jabara, which is the ownership group of the hotel, and also from the developer, because I'll probably, since particularly the developer is intimately familiar with what its use is, I'll ask them to weigh in. But the reason I had contacted your solicitor and Michelle in the first instance is obviously the property is located in the C2 zoning district where the hotels are permitted use. There's other commercial. You do allow a nursing home in that district, but this is independent living. So in speaking to them, we recognize that if this were to go forward, there would need to be some change to the zoning to allow this use on that property. So to move that forward, we thought this was probably the correct first step in my speaking with Michelle. So at this point, if it makes sense, I thought that what I was going to propose to do is ask the developer to give you some specifics to kind of explain the use in better detail than I could. And I know I have some of them on the phone. So I'm not sure. Andy, I see that you're on. Do you want to kind of run through for the committee and explain what use you've done? And I think the presentation speaks for itself in large part, but you can kind of give the committee a good feel for things.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for taking the time this morning. Really appreciate it. And especially getting us in the calendar before the year is over. I know everyone's planning their holiday vacations already at this point, so really appreciate the time. So just to kind of piggyback of what Eric mentioned, I'm going to give you a couple of broad strokes about the organization as a whole, and then I'll get into a few of the details about the project itself. So the group has been working together for several years now to develop a variety of programs to care for veterans at various stages in their life. We have programs under our umbrella that include vocational training, education for young veterans that are coming out of service, a place for them to stay in dormitory style housing and learn vocational trades, nurses college, lab technicians, etc. In other locations, we are also offering adult daycare, where we'll provide some care for senior veterans, give them an opportunity to have a social space, as well as have a place for counseling and PTSD treatments, as well as deal with mental acuity. And in all instances, we'll also provide attainable, age-restricted housing for senior veterans. It will be open to the community at large, but we are going to market heavily to veterans 55 and up. So this particular location, there are 3 uses. Essentially, our plan is to keep a portion of the hotel intact as a limited service hotel, about 100 to 120 keys. And the remaining rooms would be converted to apartments. They would be primarily 1-bedrooms and studios intended for singles and couples, so not for families. This is meant to be for 55 plus. It's age-restricted housing. The remaining amenities, will be special services provided to the residents, as well as an additional, as I mentioned earlier, adult daycare facility that will be, again, it'll be designed in terms of program for veteran use, but it'll be open to the community at large, and it will be open to the residents, but also to the residents in the area as well. So if you could just scroll down, I don't have access to the actual PowerPoint presentation. I could walk you through some of the plans here. So if you could, we'll just keep going. I already mentioned some of these things earlier. I don't want to keep, so this is some of the stats in the community. Sorry. You have this deck, I assume, so If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Eric and myself. We'll happy to answer them. Just did a little bit of research here to show you the population, the statistics. Again, our plan here is to help veterans at various stages in life and to prevent, homelessness and help with potential mental health issues. So the idea here is really to try to do something that provides a real benefit to the community overall across the nation. So it's worth mentioning too, as Eric might have mentioned as well, that we have about 15 active projects right now throughout the country. We have a handful of other hotels, very similar profile, Crown Plazas, Clarion Inns around the country, as well as several hospitals that we're developing to a very similar program. Really, we're trying to be in every single state over the next couple of years, and we'll share some of our additional marketing collateral after this call. If you could keep scrolling down, Eric, if you don't mind.
It's actually Michelle has got the control of it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Michelle.
It's actually Melissa. Melissa, if you
Oh.
could scroll to maybe
Just
to
pass me
page,
the hot potato.
if you could scroll to maybe page 28 or 29.
Thank you so much. It's perfect. So you can see some of the, well, I was just mentioning a few of the people that are on the board here. A lot of the folks in the team are not real estate focused. A lot of them are also former Pentagon officials, veterans, brigadier generals that are very heavily involved in the programming and the sort of the day-to-day operations of the facilities. I'm just the real estate development person on the team. I don't have that expertise, but you can see some of the team members are PhDs with decades of experience in the programming aspects of this facility. So as you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, vocational educational training are some of the facilities will have this. The hotels, most of them do not, but we'll be looking into opportunities where we can create some sort of a smaller center for potential vocational training or outreach for local employers for veterans. You can keep scrolling down. Next slide. So same thing again, this is not really applicable to this particular location, but we just want to show you our full offering. Keep going. All right, so see, some of our other facilities are quite large. They're between 200,000 to 500,000 square feet, and they're really all over the country in Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. I've had the pleasure of visiting all these hospitals myself, and then some other hotels that have closed down recently for a variety of reasons, full service hotels. Keep going down. And then a few more very similar Crown Plazas around, in Tulsa and Dayton, Ohio. Additional hospitals in Illinois. Keep going. All right, so here are our plans for Crown Plaza. We finally made it. All right, scrolling down one more page. As you can see here, it's a pretty straightforward programming exercise. So you can see that there's a wing that's essentially broken out that's going to have a separate entrance for residential purposes. The hotel and residential residents are not going to commingle in terms of the circulation. So they'll have their own separate dedicated elevator, separate lobby, entrance and some sort of security checkpoint. And then the hotel guests will have their own total separate entrance, separate circulation. The adult daycare will be a standalone facility, essentially between 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. That will be operated by one of our very, very experienced operators called Sarah Care, S-A-R-A-H Care. And I can provide some more literature on that as well if need be. And like I said, Meryl Griff, who's actually in this deck, you can see her name as one of our members in the team. She's the founder and owner and operator. She has been working very closely with our veterans to help develop a specific type of adult daycare facility that really helps deal with some of the common issues that they're dealing with. And again, the idea is to promote use of this facility by the residents that are living in this campus, but also obviously open our doors to the rest of the community at large. And the hotel itself will be operated by our strategic partner that's going to be working with us across the country, Commonwealth Hotels. This is sort of their specialty. They specialize in limited service offerings around the country, and we're working very closely with them and our design team to bifurcate the hotel in such a way that is most efficient, takes advantage of all the food and beverage components and all of the meeting rooms and assembly spaces to provide all those facilities to the community at large. So you still have those banquet spaces, still have all those facilities for weddings, for for special conferences. But you have a much more efficient hotel with much more efficient staff and run at a much more profitable margin. So that's sort of the game plan in a nutshell. So we'd love to get your thoughts, and I think I'll pause here to answer any questions.
I have a few questions, but I'll let the committee go first.
Yep.
All right. Michelle, are your questions going to be some of my questions?
Hi, Greg. Yes.
Hi.
Morning, Greg. Yeah, I think
Good
all of
morning.
our.
Everybody, sorry, I just
sorry,
flew in.
Do you want me to
I'll
start
defer
asking?
to you, Michelle. That's fine.
Why don't you
Okay.
start, Michelle?
I think one of the biggest questions in talking to committee members prior to the meeting, is there any intention to make all or any portion of the property tax exempt?
That's not our plan, no. So the developer is a for-profit entity. The operator of the adult daycare is more than likely going to be a nonprofit entity, but that's not, it's essentially a lease, right? It's going to be a tenant in the space. So it doesn't impact your, the way that the taxes are assessed in terms of, at least not the way we see it, right? We may have some benefits. The tenant may have some benefits for their own purposes for operations, but doesn't impact the real estate itself.
Okay, well, that's excellent news.
Mm-hmm.
In looking through the zoning information that I think is on the next slide or the one after that, I mean, I just ran some preliminary numbers for the parking calcs, looking at, the 3 different uses. Chris and I had talked about this previously, and I spoke to Eric about this as well. The current zoning, you need at least a variance for the independent living. The daycare use, our zoning ordinance only really calls out child daycare. It doesn't speak to adult, but I'd probably classify it as the same, which would need special exception approval. I would be loath to send this to the zoning hearing board, because that would be putting them in a very awkward position of potentially setting a precedent with granting the variance.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris and I had talked about, if the committee and council moving forward are in favor of this project and, helping it come to fruition, we would need to create some type of zoning overlay specific to this property, or do something to tweak the zoning ordinance. I looked at, the parking numbers. I don't have any major concerns there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some information missing that I can't do a complete parking calc, but based off the rough numbers I came up with, not bringing in the daycare use, which I mean is small in terms of its footprint compared to the hotel and the residential piece,
Mm-hmm.
you need about, I'm going to say 300 to 350 parking spaces, and you have 575.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that parking is going to be a major issue. I asked Jim McCarthy, our engineer, to hop on this call. I think he's going to be joining us any minute. I know, from a land development aspect, we may have to do,
I'm here.
Hi, Jim. Did you hear most of the presentation?
No, I thought it was going to start later. I didn't get on until 10 after. Sorry.
Okay. So the plan you're looking at, is a pretty good summary of what their intended use of the property would be moving forward. For land development purposes, I don't know, what, if anything, you'd require, but I think zoning and working through the zoning issues are going to be the biggest thing we need to focus on to
Right.
get this to move forward.
Agreed. I don't expect any major land development hurdles.
This is Chris Hartman, the Borough Solicitor. Eric, you and I had spoken initially about your client's proposal. Based on Andy's presentation, I'd just like to get some clarification on a couple of things. With regard to the residential aspect, I heard you say that you would be marketing to veterans, but that it would be open to the community at large. Is there, and then I think you also said it would be 55 plus. So I just wanted to clarify, would it be exclusively 55 plus for the entire residential component of the project? Or
Yeah.
is that correct? Okay, so.
Yeah, so it's based on the type of financing that we're going to utilize here. It's age restricted housing. So this particular loan, this particular, this incentive that we get is going to be based on housing age. So, like I said, we can't discriminate. Veterans are a special needs group, but we're not discriminating. We're opening to the community at large for leasing purposes, as long as they're above 55 years old. But we are going to market heavily to our veterans. And, if you're interested, you could see our website. We're starting to build out some of the infrastructure now. It's vsusa.org. It's pretty simple. And you'll see some of the sort of literature that we're starting to develop to help funnel folks into our buildings.
Okay, for purposes of your financing, and I understand there's some legislation that you rely upon for this type of development. Is there any minimum veterans participation, or do you simply need to market to veterans in order to qualify for your financing?
It's actually neither. We don't need to have any minimums for veterans, and we don't need to market to veterans at all. The only requirement is age restriction, 55 plus.
Okay.
So it's up to us.
All right. And what I think of as independent living, that means there really aren't services being provided on site for the occupants of the residential part of the project. Is that correct?
Correct. This is a pure multifamily project. It's a traditional apartment building. It will have some amenities, right? It will have, potentially we're going to work with our design team and our, hotel operator to figure out a way to maybe share some of the amenities, like the pool, for example. There could be some different hours. They could stagger, right? So there's an opportunity to overlap a little bit. Maybe some of the outdoor, spaces in the courtyard, for example, we could potentially have that, shared by both. But that's kind of be case by case basis. We'll probably build out a new fitness center for the residents themselves inside the facility. But in terms of the way it looks and feels, it'll be a traditional multifamily project. It's not a senior living facility, so it's very different in that regard.
Okay, and the adult daycare, that is similar to the residential in that it is not veteran only. It's anyone who would seek that service in the community.
Correct. We would accept the VA, VA healthcare benefits. That's part of it. And obviously, like I said, the team on the operations side have been working very closely to develop a very comprehensive plan to help, whether it's counseling or therapy. So it's obviously advantageous for veterans to be there, but it'll be open to the rest of the community. Yeah.
Okay, and on the Commonwealth Hotel side, they would be the operator of the hotel facility. Do they have other hotel operations in Pennsylvania or anywhere nearby?
Yeah, they're actually based in Ohio, so they're pretty close by. I don't want to misquote the exact. I think they're in Cincinnati, but let me get you a list of projects for you. I'm fairly certain they have other ones that are located nearby.
All right. Are they partnering at present on any of your facilities, like these other sites that are in the presentation?
Yes, they are. They are going to be our programmatic partner. So that's the idea, right? They are an expert in managing hotels. They're very flexible and understand how to lay out and design hotels. They're working with us now hand in hand from day one. They're actually flying out right now, looking at our Memphis and Orlando properties as we speak. So we're constantly working with our design team and having them fly out, sketch out the best way to bifurcate the properties, and then we incorporate their design ideas into our layouts and concepts. So they're a very integral part of the process. And the plan is for them to run all of our hotels as they come online. So, and then in terms of, I think you had a question about, in terms of the residential component, we're also going to bring in a experienced property manager that's going to be, certified to do this kind of manage this kind of an asset. So we're going to have another group. There are a couple of candidates we're interviewing right now. It's a little further down the line, but they're going to have a very strong and large portfolio that we could point to for references as well.
Okay.
We're going to be managing this property for 15 years plus. We want to make sure we do a good job and have the best consultants possible, whatever we don't have in house already. So.
All right. I want to understand a little bit more about the hotel market, which is part of your presentation to indicate, I think, that there's a a need for a reuse of the hotel. And obviously the COVID-19 has been devastating to this industry and, you know, restaurants and things like that. But with the end of the COVID, some point in the near future, what is the overall market condition for properties like this? Is there a perception that there are excess hotel units in the market here, or is it that this type of facility is, you know, because of its age, it's no longer, you know, appealing to run efficiently as a hotel? I mean, I'm just trying to get an understanding of, you know, why this project is appropriate for this property.
It's a combination of factors, frankly, Chris. You know, it's so some of these sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear. There's a little bit of static in the background. A lot of these hotels that we've come across, and we have a pipeline of about 20 other projects that are similar, were actually distressed before COVID, frankly. They were having a hard time keeping themselves afloat. And then COVID was sort of the last nail in the coffin. Most of them went dark, frankly. This is one of the only hotels that we're buying that's still operational. So part of the issue is that, look, Justin and his team did a great job managing this hotel. It's a fantastic property. I slept in it myself. I've been there. I walked the property in great detail. And I think part of the issue is that, you know, they are designed at a different time, right? They are older hotels, and they were laid out in such a way that, you know, they're not necessarily, you know, in their current condition and configuration, are not as efficient as they could be from a staffing standpoint, from a security standpoint, operations. So we're coming in to not just bifurcate the hotel, but also, you know, execute a PIP to actually bring the hotel up to modern standards. So we're not just going to keep it as it is. We're going to renovate all the rooms, update the common spaces, make it a modern, true modern hotel for the 21st century. So that's a big part of it. It's a combination of both. It's age and the overall concept and design is just not as efficient as it could be. I can get you some more market data. I'm happy to get our hotel operator to give you some real detail analytics. Unfortunately, they're not on the call right now, and I want to defer to the experts on the numbers. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Andy, this is Greg Portner. I have two questions for you. First question is, you were saying the residential section will be age restricted.
Correct.
You know, to veterans and the public. Is it income restricted?
Yes. So there'll be bands of income. We're working with our tax credit consultants to determine exactly the bands of AMI. It could range from 40% to 80% AMI, but an average would be about 60% AMI for the neighborhood, for the county rather. Sorry.
Okay.
For the county.
Okay. My second question is, thank you. My second question is on your adult daycare section. Obviously, you were saying about veterans insurances, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What other sources of income will you try to, get for that program, and what regulatory body will oversee that operation?
So that's a great question, actually. I appreciate it. That would be a really good question for me to get in front of Sarah Care, Operator Myrtle Griff. So why don't I table that one and get back to you with all the details. I work with them as essentially the way again, I'm not on the operations side, I'm on the development side. So my job is to identify properties, underwrite them, and get them entitled and get them financed, right? I'm building the box for them for the smart people to come in and fill the box with program. So let me get you the answer from her rather than try to make up a answer, halfway. So but there's definitely a very clear program, and just, it's an alphabet soup, frankly. So let me get you the answer after this call.
Okay. And the other one other to extend that, I assume there won't be any regulatory body overseeing the residential part, but I don't know that. So if there is, I'd like to know what that is also. So just. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, no problem.
Andy,
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Andy, my name's Bill Jenks, one of the councilmen. Just a few questions. What is your oldest facility that is in operation right now?
So, so this group has come together over the last 3 years to develop this business plan on the heels of the passing of the Mission Act. I'm not sure if you're familiar with legislation. This was written by John McCain right before he passed away, and the idea here was to really create an opportunity for private service providers to offer VA healthcare, right? Whether it's secondary elective surgery or counseling or PTSD treatment. And the group that has come together for the VSC USA brand, if you will, really began as an operating business, right? And the real estate team is comprised of a group of people that have a lot of experience on their own, and over the last, a couple of decades, have amassed over 7,000 units under their portfolio and about 2,500 affordable housing apartments. But they all come from different places and work in different companies or work on their own. This is a new venture that we're all come together for to help develop this portfolio. Initially, we started with hospitals about 1.5 years ago, and as COVID began to ravage the hotel industry, we started to acquire hotels of this size. So like I said, at the moment, we have about 15 active deals and 20 more in our pipeline. So it'll be about 35 before, I would say, middle of next year. All of them are currently in pre-development or in schematic design or going through permitting at this point. So I'm happy to share our collective experience and our team bios. You can see for yourself what we've done outside of VS USA, but unfortunately at the moment, they're all at this phase or a little further along, right? I've gone through rezoning, going through, DD drawing sets, filing for permits, they're all in various stages of pre-development.
Okay, so the whole thing is just conceptualized. Some is moving forward, some is still in the development phase, is what you're telling us.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. But it's worth noting, though, we do have a tremendous amount of multifamily experience and affordable housing experience. So at the end of the day, this is really a mixed use project, a very, interesting one. We've all joined here because we care about the mission. We think it's important what we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's a either multifamily or a mixed use project, and something that we've done around the country, and we feel very confident in executing.
Okay, you had mentioned in the hotel segment that there would be limited services to guests. Can you explain that, please?
Right. Well, so the connotation limited service just means it's a smaller staffing. Maybe not necessarily, a full restaurant that's available 24 hours for room service. So it's pared back services. However, it's still going to have, the pool, the fitness center, and all the convention spaces that it had before. As you can see from the plans, we're actually keeping most of the food and beverage and meeting spaces intact as they are. Obviously, we're going to upgrade them, but they're going to maintain control over those facilities. So I would say it's probably a misnomer. Limited service really means limited staff, limited services. In this case, it's going to have all the components of the previous hotel. It'll just be a little bit more efficient in terms of how it's operated. But again, I would say the most obvious one would be the staff level and the amount of F&B available for the guests on in their rooms for delivery, etc.
Will children be allowed in the hotel?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yep.
Okay. You had mentioned you were going to cut down on the number of rooms. Did I understand? I know it's a 5-story tower.
Mm-hmm.
What floors would be hotel rooms?
Sure. So there'll be totally 129 hotel keys remaining. We have 28 studios and 46 one-bedrooms. So if you look at the plans, I'm not sure if you see the presentation I'm looking at now, right? You see the screen, I assume, right? The yellow, as you can see, is the hotel on the ground floor. Right. And then the tower portion becomes the hotel, right? So the sort of the taller structure that you see the dashed line with the hotel entrance arrow, it's off here to the right,
Right.
third through sixth floor is the hotel tower with all the hotel keys. The only portion that's residential, it's this L shape here. It'll have its separate entrance and separate parking lot, and we'll have separate signage, right? So it'll be very distinct in terms of access, right? You have a different access point from the street, and different access point for entry into the building, separate elevator lobby, separate staircases that essentially does not commingle at all with the hotel. So totally separated in every way possible. So does that answer your question? It's the two-story structure on the back side is the residential. Everything else is hotel.
Right. So basically, you would wall that off once you get
Mhm.
past what's now the existing lobby.
Mhm.
When it goes back to the past the pool, then you wall it off. Is that
Exactly.
Okay.
We'll find some convenient ways for the residents to get access to the pool. Maybe it's through the rear yard, through the common area. You know, we'll work with our design team to make it, you know, attractive. We're also going to be working with the hotel flag as well to make sure that they're satisfied to, you know, to that extent, to make sure that their needs are met. So, you know, we have to uphold the brand standards as well. So it's going to be an ongoing exercise, but that's the plan at the moment.
Well, you just read my mind, because my final question is, the hotel is going to be under what flag?
So we're actually discussing potentially keeping the current flag intact. Now, don't quote me on this. This is an ongoing conversation. So our hotel operator has a strong relationship with IHG as well. So we may actually roll out an updated, you know, facelift for Crown Plazas across the country as we acquire more of these hotels. They seem to be very interested in the idea of creating this limited service or smaller footprint concept rather than these larger hulking structures they have around the country that are frankly, a lot of them are failing. I mean, this is, I would say, one of 7 Crown Plazas that we're buying at the same time. So that's a pretty good indication, you know, that this type of asset and this many rooms, this much space is struggling. Whether it's Memphis or Dayton, Ohio, it's the same story.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. Anybody else have any questions for Andy?
I have an additional one. What's your timing on this best case scenario to move forward?
Sure. So I'm trying to think of the dates now in my head. So I would say roughly, we would like to start, you know, construction. I would ideally by the end of 2021, in Q4 21. We may start doing some, you know, some destructive testing, some soft demo to help our design team, you know, get a better handle on the construction documents to make sure that we have coordinated sets. You know, so, but ideally we could start doing the demo on the resi section, you know, fairly before the end of the year. That's the idea. There are obviously a lot of steps we need to take. You know, we need to get our zoning application approved, obviously. And you know, get our building permits. You know, I'm not as familiar with Reading's building department, and maybe you guys can tell me how long it takes to get a building permit in this community. But I would imagine it'll take several months to get to that process, and you know, hopefully by July, August, we could really get into the weeds and start, you know, investigating, you know, interviewing contractors, and you know, hopefully we'll be closing on our construction financing shortly thereafter.
I mean, to answer your question about the building permit process, if and when we got to that point,
Sure.
I could set up a meeting with the inspection company we use to, I don't want to say expedite that process, but to definitely, you know, help it go much smoother than them just seeing the plans for the first time.
That'd be great. We'd love to do that. That's always much more, you know, productive than dropping 100 sheets in their desk, you know. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Would any portion of the hotel remain open during construction?
So we're actually exploring that option right now. And again, please don't, you know, quote me on this. We're still trying to figure out the phasing strategy as we speak. But we're thinking that potentially we may keep the hotel up and running while we're going through our design development and permitting process. And then once we actually close on our construction financing, we would close the hotel down to bifurcate the mechanical systems, right? Because they're going to be separate sub-meter systems, whether it's, you know, air or electrical power. And you know, execute the PIP on the hotel at the same time as we're converting the hotel rooms into apartments, so that essentially the hotel would stay on, the lights would stay on, for a good, almost 10 to 12 months while we're getting all of our ducks in a row, so that service is not interrupted. We'll just limit the amount of hotel keys that are actually going to be serviced and reduce the staff accordingly. That's the plan that we're hoping to execute. It may require us to close a little bit earlier to prepare for some of the demolition, but that's the idea.
Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Great.
Bill, I just have one more for Andy, and that is with regard to the adult daycare, we talked about the square footage. I don't recall what the occupancy would be or what the number of individuals who could be served by that adult daycare. Do you have a number on that?
Yeah, again, I've heard some high level numbers. It's somewhere between 60 to 100 people. That's sort of the goalpost, if you will.
Okay.
Like I said, I owe you guys some answers in adult daycare operations, so I'll make sure to include that as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Chris and Andy, I guess that's why I asked the question about the regulatory body, because
Right.
usually you have to have a license with some regulatory body to operate. They determine the occupancy rules, so that all kind of comes all together. I'm very familiar with that type of operation, so I'm just curious about that. Chris, that would answer your question probably.
No, that's all very fair questions. And again, I'm sure Meryl could answer these questions very quickly. Again, you can see her bio in this deck. I mean, she's a very experienced operator, and she has plenty of other locations to lean on. So for numbers. Okay.
Andy, all these questions that the committee members have been asking, you can funnel those, your answers then back to Michelle, and she can, disperse it from there.
Okay, excellent.
Dave,
Mike?
excuse me,
Sorry.
Dave.
Go ahead, Dave.
3 very basic questions, I guess. Title to the property itself, real estate wise, stays the same?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear the last thing you said. I apologize.
The title to the property, the ownership stays the same, or does the property change hands in ownership name?
It will change hands. It will change hands. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And parking that you talked about, Michelle, with 500 and some parking spaces that are there now, does that deduct what had by previous old time agreements been shared parking, like with Red Lobster and so forth?
That does not, I mean, their 575 spaces is not including what Red Lobster has the right to use from that variance that was granted in like the 80s or the 90s. But again, looking at the numbers they're throwing up here, hotel parking space requirement is based off of number of rooms plus number of staff on the shift of greatest employment. Residential, if the borough's in favor of moving forward and doing some type of overlay to allow this project to happen, I would think we would use similar to numbers to what we're using in the draft overlay, which is I think it was 1.2 spaces per unit. And then the adult daycare, I need more information on in terms of, number of people that would be in there plus staff. But I mean, just reducing the hotel rooms alone, I'm not really that concerned that they're going to have a parking issue, knowing that there's dedicated spaces for Red Lobster.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like it would be almost impossible. There's a lot of parking there.
There is.
Yeah.
Physically, would the residential area be sealed off from the hotel?
Correct. Yeah. The idea is to separate the uses. We don't want the guests to commingle with the residents.
So they would be, as a part of the construction, would be some kind of a barrier in between those two entities.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, one other question, Bill, sorry. And Andy, just one other quick question, and Michelle. Obviously, we've seen a, diminishing number of people using the hotel complex. I mean, like someone said earlier, COVID thing has just killed everything. But do we anticipate an increased amount of traffic flow once these units are full? in and out, because it's not too easy. Access in and out of that isn't too easy, especially if you want to make a left turn. Depending on what exit you leave, it's going to be very difficult. I'm just curious about that.
That's something we could discuss in the land development process. I mean, if the borough feels that some type of traffic impact study is warranted, we could require that. I remember 15, 20 years ago when I want to say the hotel was kind of in its heyday, and you had the restaurant plus the nightclub that were all kind of going on at the same time. There was a substantial amount of traffic coming in and out of that. But I think until we had, more information from the developer and the land development process, that's when we could dig into that and see what would be warranted to require from them to be able to approve any type of plan.
That's fine. Just something that came to my mind. So thank you.
It's a fair point. We want to be successful, but we don't want to cause traffic jams. So I understand.
Appreciated. I mean, my thought, Andy, is if, you can follow up to all the information that was requested as part of this meeting. There are 3 committee members, including the chair, that were unable to attend today because of having to plow out their businesses.
Oh, no.
But I mean, the silver lining to COVID is we're recording these meetings. So once the meeting's downloaded, I'm going to share it with them so they can hear everything that we heard this morning. And then if, the timing would be suitable for you, I'm thinking perhaps a follow-up at the regular January Economic Development Committee meeting, which I believe is the 27th, to, potentially, depending how the committee feels, make some type of recommendation for Chris and I to begin furiously drafting some type of zoning regulations.
Got it. You said January 27th, right?
Let me just double check my calendar. It's actually the 28th.
Right, got it. Okay. And what's the process like, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, if you're thinking of an overlay, right, which I think is, it's a very smart way to do it, gives you more flexibility down the line. What's the process like? I'm just curious, timing wise, and in terms of review and approval.
Typically, Chris, Jim, and I would sit down and write something up. We would take it to the Economic Development Committee and the Planning Commission. We would also need to send it to the County Planning Commission for their review and comment. That's the longest waiting game. I'd say it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to get that review letter back from the county. And then, depending what, if any, comments they have, we would potentially need to reincorporate them, revise the draft, send it back to them for review. Once we got a recommendation from Economic Development and Planning Commission for council to approve and adopt, we would need to advertise a month out from the council meeting that the ordinance would actually be adopted at. So I'm going to say best case scenario, 3 to 4 months, worst case scenario, 6 to 7.
Got it. That's very helpful. So there's going to be a public hearing regardless, right? Which they're going to have to do the usual process, and any objectors or neighbors, etc., will be able to opine at that point, right?
It's different from a zoning hearing in that, if you were going for a variance or special exception, there's public notice in terms of it gets mailed to all of the adjacent property owners, the property's posted. In the case of a public hearing like this, yes, we still advertise the special hearing in the Reading Eagle on our website. It's typically incorporated into our regular council meeting, but the notice isn't per se mailed out to directly impacted adjacent property owners.
Got it. All right. Well, it's very, very helpful. I think I'll, I have some homework here, so I'll make sure to funnel the information to Eric, to you, Michelle. Make sure you get everything you need. Eric, do you have anything else you want to add? Any questions you have on my team?
Anybody have anything?
Eric?
Just the one thing, Andy, this is Jim McCarthy.
Hey.
The PennDOT, you're going to have to update the PennDOT permits for those driveways. So that is probably going to be your longest timeline. I think that's going to take longer than the borough process.
PennDOT permits for the driveways, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
In which case
Thank
you
you-
would need
thank
to
you
get
for
a
the heads up,
traffic
Jen.
and
Yeah.
you would need to get a traffic engineer involved for that anyways, at which point they could also look at traffic volumes.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we're reducing the capacity, as you know, we're combining rooms. So, you know, just in terms of head count, we're gonna go down in size, and we're doing studios in one bedroom, so we're not expecting any large families here. You know,
Well, the concern will be that probably with the age of those driveways,
mhm.
unless the current owner has a copy of the permit, you can't get them from the PennDOT archive. So as part of the land development, the borough is going to need a PennDOT number for the driveway. So my guess is your driveways predate the filing system, and the current owner is probably not going to have them, where normally at transfer, they should transfer the permit to the new owner. So that basically you're probably going to have to permit the existing driveway as it exists because it doesn't have a current permit according to PennDOT.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much for the heads up. Really appreciate it. We'll get on that right after this call. I've been through that. I've been through that before. That process it takes time.
Yeah, it does. That's why I just wanted to bring it up, just so you were aware of it. Maybe you have an existing permit, and they're going to say that, you know, hey, the change of use doesn't require anything, and that's fine with the borough. We'll follow PennDOT's lead on that.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
One quick question from me. What about a 45-year-old veteran?
Well, look, the type of financing we're getting is age restricted. You know, so, you know, we would offer access to some of our education and vocational programs that are in the county. Actually, we have a project in Newcastle, for example, where we will have a very strong education component, dormitory style housing for those folks that are going through that program as well. They could take advantage of the GI Bill to pay for their vocational training. There's all sorts of career placement counseling, right? Helping with resumes, helping with life skills. But unfortunately for the housing component, it is going to be 55 plus. So.
Okay, that's the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Andy, thank you very much for your presentation and for answering everyone's questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Right before the holidays, I hope you guys have a great holiday vacation break. And now you're snowed in, you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty, let's move along here to
Thank you, folks.
Michelle and the bike share stations.
So I wanted to give the committee an update since I had the opportunity unexpectedly at this meeting this morning. I was put in touch. Alvernia College has set up a bike share task force that's made up of some of their board members, some of their faculty, and some of their students. And Aaron Gantz from the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance introduced me to the chair of that board. Aaron and I participated in a meeting with them 2 weeks ago. And it seems like there's interest from Alvernia to kind of piggyback on what we're doing with West Reading. I will be participating in a joint call with Alvernia and Movatics later this afternoon to kind of virtually introduce the two of them and then, you know, talk about the different options that Movatics offers. So that's exciting because, you know, it's another step towards potentially building a network outside of just Wyomissing and West Reading. And then Courtney Dixon from Tower Health did confirm last week that Tower Health is on board with Movatics. She's not entirely sure because of COVID when they'll be signing their contract, but the intent is they are going to move forward with reinstituting their bike share program, and they will be using Movatics as the platform. So I have a second call today with Kelly from Movatics to talk about the borough's eventual contract with Movatics, because the funding for those bike share stations is coming from that special set-aside grant that PennDOT gave us. There's specific language that has to be in there that Colleen Terry, our grant writer, is getting me. So I just want to make sure everything is in there and, you know, we're ready in advance of when the share stations need to actually go in, which I anticipate would being sometime in 2021, possibly spring of 2022, depending what happens with COVID.
Great. Glad to hear that's moving along. Good. Okay, anybody have any questions on this? Okay, Michelle, moving right along, let's go into those Berks Smart Growth.
Sure. So Fred and I actually both participated in the GRCA meeting yesterday. The predominant topic of the meeting was talking about the housing information, the lack of, I'm going to say affordable, but just housing in general in Berks County. Tom McEwen, who I think you all remember, he spoke to the committee last year about tax increment financing. Tom's actually going to be retiring at the end of the year, though he has put me in touch with his successor. He spoke about, there being a need in Berks County for educating municipal officials on tax increment financing and other types of tax incentives in general in regards to residential projects specifically. I think he's partnering, and Fred, feel free to chime in at any point if you want here. He's partnering with CELG to, try and look at speaking to municipalities that are open to affordable housing. And when I say that, I do not mean Section 8 housing, just affordable housing that fits into what the median income is. So, I think that's the group's overall goal to move forward. An interesting tidbit that was thrown out during that meeting is that 27% of the housing in Berks County was built in 1939 or earlier. So if you think of that housing stock and what's out there, a lot of it is either outdated, it's not up to code, or it's not going to meet the needs of families today in terms of closet size, number of bathrooms, bedrooms, things like that. Fred, I'll let you speak about the municipal partnership part of it. The other interesting topic on the agenda yesterday was Mark Radcliffe gave an update on West Reading's downtown plan. I was going to invite him to attend either the January or the February Economic Development Committee meeting of the borough just to give an update on that plan. Some of the highlights he spoke about from that plan is that they're looking at, adopting form-based codes, making facade requirements, and changing their general branding strategy from what it is now to something a little bit more upscale and elegant. But again, I'll invite him to attend a meeting in 2021 so he can speak about that directly. And then Fred, if you want to talk at all about the municipal partnership or anything else from the meeting yesterday.
Well, the partnership, which is one of the arms of the Center for Local Government at Albright, will be talking with our membership about whether or not a municipality wants to have economic growth and therefore has the need for additional housing or so on, or if they just want to stay the way they are, which is up to them. But many of them that I've spoken to so far they recognize the need for growth in order to pay the bills. As we know, the commercial district is what pays the bills. So I expect that many municipalities will want to, and what we're going to be looking at are zoning issues of lot sizes and setbacks and different things like that to hopefully open up more opportunities for developers. The problem, as Michelle pointed out, is affordability. And she is absolutely right. That doesn't mean Section 8 stuff. It just means that when you do the math of the average income in Berks County and figure you're not supposed to spend more than a third or so of your gross income on the house payment, which is mortgage, taxes, and insurance, it doesn't take you too much work to figure out what the average family can afford. And it's like $250. And building single family homes today is increasingly getting close to $400,000. It's certainly over $300,000. So therefore, what can we do about it? And that really is why there has been so little new construction over the last 10 years. The builders just can't afford it. So we're looking at a number of different things to make suggestions to the county commissioners and so on. And I think it'll be a good process. The one thing, Michelle, that I disagreed with in the comments that were made yesterday was that we took a look, the Planning Commission, the Berks County Planning Commission took a look at how many plans were approved that were then never actually constructed, were never laid out. And they found that there could be as many as, it was something over 2,000 lots that are kind of sitting out there that were approved but weren't ever developed. And boy, that's a whole lot or whatever, but it really isn't, Michelle. In our heyday in the early 2000s, we were building nearly 2,000 residential units a year. So that, if those all came available tomorrow, that might get us a year and a half or something like that. It's not an enormous number. So we got a lot of work to do. So we'll keep you updated as we go.
And in terms of the 2030 Economic Development Strategic Plan, Pam Shupp was not available to participate in the call yesterday. She's kind of chairing that, but from what I've been told from David Hunter from the County Planning Commission, we should expect to resume our meetings in January. So hopefully I'll have an update at the January Economic Development Committee meeting on the progress of that group as well.
Great.
Michelle, who is Tom McEwen's successor?
Give me 1 second.
Is he somebody on the county payroll or?
I believe so, yes. Hold on 1 second. Him and I actually have a call set up. I think it's the second week in January. His successor is Jeremy Zaborowski, Zaborowski, and he is the Deputy Director of the Berks County IDA.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to send you an invite to that phone call I have scheduled with him?
What is that, just to get to know him?
Yeah, just to kind of touch base, talk about, you know, who we are, what we do.
Sure, I'd like to meet him.
Okay.
Say it's Fred again. You know, Tom McEwen is a borough resident, and maybe we could get him on this committee at some point in the future.
I've already talked to him about that, Fred. I thought he would make an excellent addition to this committee, the Planning Commission, or even potentially council if the seat ever opens up.
Okay, good thinking.
And he is interested in staying active.
Yes, I know that.
Hey, anything else on this?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, just one thing under miscellaneous that I had. Michelle, any news you can share about the mall?
Jim McCarthy's office and I both received an inquiry from a group that was asking about, you know, land development submission requirements for the gas station. Jim, refresh my memory if I'm wrong. Was it a CVS or a Rite Aid?
The CVS.
Yeah, there's talk about putting a CVS on the corner where the gas station was, and since that the mall property is currently all one property, I would assume they'd be coming in with a subdivision plan at the same time they would do the land development. But outside of that contact, I've not heard anything. I do follow up with the attorney for the mall every so often, and what he did tell me the last time we spoke, which was around the time Jim and I both got that inquiry, was yes, they are working on that project with CVS, and because of that, the other entities that were interested in taking the anchor stores are willing to back off of the timing requirements. You know, they had previously said that they were in such a rush to do this, but those potential anchor store tenants are saying, you know, okay, we'll work with you on the timing and back off a little bit to make it happen so quickly. So, you know, there's definitely something in the works. I think the first we would find out about it would either be the attorney contacting me or the submission of a land development plan. So we'll see.
Okay, great.
And to add to that, I actually did receive yesterday, Jim and I both received a land development plan submission for Berkshire Mall West to get rid of the drive aisle that's down towards what was the AC Moore entrance, put a new driveway in that will align with the driveway across the street that goes into the mall at the former Sears, like where the pet store, I don't even know if the pet store is still in there, but that entryway. And from what I've been told from Spot Stevens and McCoy, and also Joe Nosti from Allied Properties, the intent behind doing this is that Burlington will be moving into Berkshire Mall West. I don't know if it's in the H.H. Gregg space, but that would be my guess.
Interesting. Okay. Has anything been brought up? You know, a while back we were looking for an access
Yes,
road.
so I talked to Kim Fosnot from Spot Stevens and McCoy. That access easement to get into the Berkshire Court cul-de-sac,
Right.
Allied has no problem providing it to us. Spot Stevens did not put it on the land development plan that they submitted this week, only because they want to talk through that with the Planning Commission as to where specifically we want it. There's long-term talk of them doing some type of building addition on the west side of the building where AC Moore is, which, you know, that if they put in an access easement and then would do an addition, that access easement would need to be reconfigured. In talking through that with Kim, I said, you know, that's fine. We're not looking for any type of even paved road necessarily, even if it's just a gravel road with, you know, some type of breakthrough barricade in front of it. That's fine. We just want another access point to that cul-de-sac. So the owner knows that that is a concern and will be a requirement of the borough and does not have an issue with it. It's just figuring out the specifics of it.
Great, good. Yeah, we do need that access.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have anything?
Just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season.
Yes, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Same to you and everyone.
Happy,
Merry Christmas.
healthy
Thank
year.
you. Merry Christmas.
Stay healthy.
Yeah,
You too.
take care.
And with that, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.